More on our top story now, the attack on the US military in Jordan, which has killed 3 service people and injured dozens more. I'm joined now by Laura Blumenfeld. She's a former senior policy advisor to the US State Department's Israel-Palestinian negotiating team. Laura, firstly, I mean, look, yet more unrest that we're seeing here in the Middle East then. What are your initial impressions on what we're hearing here?
Well, I would say it's alarming, but not surprising at all. I mean, look, there have been over 150 Iran-backed attacks on U.S. Troops so far, and so it was inevitable that one of them was going to strike and kill some Americans, which is a tragedy, but not surprising. The second reason I would say it's not surprising is as America and the moderate Arab states, with the help of Qatar and of course Israel's involved, are inching toward a hostage deal. These radical states, these radical actors, non-state actors, have every bit of interest in disrupting what looks like, as we're inching toward a ceasefire, to continue the conflagration, because it just benefits them, as we saw with the Houthis. Their popularity rises. The more they attack U.S. and their allies, the stronger they appear, at least to their backers. So alarming, not surprising.
Very strong words from President Biden that we've heard as well. Do you think that reflects the seriousness with which he's taking this?
There were two things that he said, and I thought it was very interesting, the words he used. He really distinguished himself, frankly, from the Israelis in how he responded. First of all, he called it terrorism. He's being very clear that the United States is not at war. Israel, after their attack on October 7th, immediately declared war. The second thing that he said is that the U.S. will respond in the time and manner of our choosing. He wants to control the narrative. He wants to control the response. He's saying, you won't draw us in. We're not going to, fall into your trap, Iran-backed militias. We are in control here. It will be our response. And we still are, writing the script for our response, which is very important because for Biden, it's all about leadership on a global stage, and also, of course, leadership more and more at home as he's running this presidential race that we see with, Donald Trump as the likely nominee. You just know that if he hasn't already said anything, Trump is going to say this is weak leadership, and that's why the Americans were attacked. So Biden needs to seize the initiative and stay ahead of his attackers, whether they're overseas or at home, frankly.
How do you think the U.S. will respond to this?
Well, I think that there'll be a measured response. I think it'll be a military strike. We've seen that already, allying with the UK. I think, he very much emphasizes alliances, so I'm not sure it'll just be a unilateral strike from the Americans alone. And I don't think it'll necessarily be, immediate. It'll be well thought out. The Americans have targets. They have, lists of already pre-selected targets for just this kind of occasion, and we'll have to wait and see which one they choose.
The situation in the Red Sea as well, it doesn't seem to be getting any better there either. Do you think that the current military efforts that we're going through, do you think it's going to be enough to stop it?
Well, look, there's been a key priority for the United States from the time, frankly, that President Biden flew over shortly after the October 7th attack to keep the regional conflagration from blowing, right? They want to limit the war. So I think that they still have that as a priority.
I don't seem to have that.
Superpowers don't bluff has kind of been their slogan. That's Secretary Blinken's expression. So there will be a response, but I think the idea is for it to keep it minimal, preventing a wider regional war. Israel is threatening, to attack in the north, Hezbollah on the northern border. And the last thing the Americans want to see is this kind of two-track war of America versus Iran, Israel versus Hezbollah, because frankly, our military priorities as Americans are China and Russia. And we don't need to be dragged into this kind of third front with Iran.
And just what have you made as well on aid efforts, the countries that have said that they will pause their funding to the UN agency UNRWA then? What do you think the impact of that will be?
I think there's going to be, hopefully a quick investigation, and some of those workers have already been fired, and get to the bottom of it so that, frankly, it's a tragedy for the Palestinian people that they're the ones who are going to have to suffer from this. So I think the Americans have been very, very clear about being strategic and targeted in everything, whether it's their military operations or something like this. I think there'll be a quick investigation. They're calling it a pause, not a cut. in funding. And I know that the Biden administration prioritizes humanitarian aid, so it hopefully won't impact it for too long anyway.
Laura Blumenfeld, former senior policy advisor to the US, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, a pleasure.